So the suggestion from chat was that we use a Suicide Ignis on this wave because that will give us the CC immunity onto our Swordflesh Zia, and then that allows us to take the Mark Purify so that we don't die to the healing curses from Amun-Ra. And I think that is a really smart idea, and hopefully it will just allow V4 Swordflesh Zia to just go to town. Hey everyone, it's Steven GetMoneyMyrick here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about the Tower of Dream, which is the newest PvE content within Idle Heroes. Specifically, I'm going to be giving a tip for each level of Nightmare 1 through 5 on Depth 1 within this. So this video does assume that you were able to clear the first 15 stages. I'm not going to go into too much detail about those at all, because honestly I found them pretty easy myself. I understand there's going to be players out there that can't do it, but I assume if you can get to Tower 650, you're going to be able to clear up to the first 15 stages of Depth 1. And honestly, for a lot of them, if you have 2 Transcendence heroes, you could probably put in 4 or 5-star heroes of these up heroes that give you the bonus rewards that you're going to want to get. So this video is not going to be necessarily how this mode works, because I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's going to be some tips about how to clear Nightmare 1 to 5 so that you can get those resources, get those big stones, whatever they're called, and move forward. You're going to be able to unlock Depth 2 next week as long as you get to 15, but I thought this was the more challenging content, and definitely Depth 3 with these is pretty scary to think about how difficult it's going to be. So I'm going to go over the lineups I faced, the heroes I used, and I'm also going to talk about how my dream bag changed between my 2 different accounts, because I did get 2 attempts on this. One on my server 13, which is a little bit more of a whale account, and one on my server 23, which I would call like it's not in-game, but it's like early in-game account. It's got 2 Transcendence heroes and some pay-to-win artifacts. So I'll be going over what I use there. There will be timestamps for this video if you want to skip to a specific level of Nightmare, or if you want to stick around until the end of the video, I'll be giving just some general thoughts about this mode in general, and also whether or not I think it might make sense for you to keep your Magic Stone swords or not, considering what we've seen after a few days of this mode being open. I also want to say that if you're not subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. I'd really appreciate it. But let's go ahead and start by talking about Nightmare 1. So every Nightmare challenge is going to have a special like twerk, tweak, whatever you want to call it. And Nightmare 1, it's whenever after 6 rounds, you're going to receive fatal damage, which means you have to kill the lineup within 6 rounds. And I found that the lineups I faced on both accounts were the exact same, and I assume it's going to be at least for Depth 1, it's always going to be the Transcendence heroes. And I found this relatively easy. I would say make sure you use a Rogan if you're struggling, because that Rogan is going to help boost your damage on your Transcendence heroes and do it. If you have an Azmael the Dauntless, put a Staff Punisher on him, energy feed him, and you're going to be able to knock this out pretty quickly. For all Nightmare levels, I did use the Phoenix pet. And I tried to use my up heroes whenever possible. So the one on my left here is my server 13, and I was able to use 3 advanced heroes. The one on the right, I didn't use any. I probably could have taken the Sherlock out and put a carry in at least. I was kind of worried and struggling just slightly with it, so I just put in my PvP lineup. Sherlock doesn't make a ton of sense, honestly. Rogan is definitely where it's at for a lot of these levels. Hey, Luna, quiet. So Nightmare 2 is the first time that I experienced a different lineup between my accounts. You can see the Transcendence heroes stayed the same with 2 queens, but that the other heroes did move and did switch, and they're still kind of sustaining heroes, and that's kind of a theme of it, but the lineups did change, and you can see the modifiers. Position 2 is not available to deploy any hero, and a big thing about that is you are not going to get any of your auras for a team of 6, which makes this a lot more challenging. As far as a tip, I would say if you have Swordflesh Zia, this is going to be pretty easy for you. It's just important to pair them with a Rogan. Swordflesh Zia is going to be able to stay alive long enough in order to do enough damage, and she's just not going to take quite enough damage to really get knocked out, whereas the Rogan's going to let her clean up within 15 rounds. Amun-Ra can be good against Garuda. Carries can be good for stilling energy. It's going to be very similar to doing the Pioneer levels of Void Vortex. Also, I found Eloise to be extremely good in a lot of these modes. Eloise with a crown, very powerful. I also found that my Scarlet Queen Halora was not doing a ton, not as much as I expected, and she died kind of easily. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. Nightmare 3, I faced the same lineup on both my accounts with double Azmael the Dauntless, double Terra, and double Penny. And I had 2 different lineups I can use, and you can see here I was able to use 3 ups on my left-hand side and only 1 on my right. I probably could have fit a Drake in there as well. As far as tips for this, I found this one pretty easy. Again, if you have a Swordflesh Zia, it's going to be easy, and if you have an Azmael the Dauntless, it's going to be easy. You just need at least one Transcendence hero that can do damage, keep them alive long enough, and start whittling it down, because I felt like pretty much any V4 hero here is going to be able to knock this level out. Not healing is a little awkward. You're used to Swordfish Sia healing up so much, but with Splendid A and B, she just was not taking enough damage and she was dodging enough that I found this to be relatively easy. And again, Eloise, in a lot of situations, was out damaging Swordfish Sia. Nightmare 4 is where I have some actually really helpful information, and I can't take credit for it. You know, everything I do in Idle Heroes is usually somebody else smarter than me, somebody that has more time than me, somebody that understands the game better than me, and I take it from them, I adapt it, and I explain it to you all. So Nightmare 4 here was a giant CC level, lots of control, and we faced the same lineup in both server 23 and server 13. And the big tip I got for this was to use a sacrificial Ignis, a suicide Ignis, in order to buff my Transcendence hero. And what that's going to allow me to do is become CC immune on that Transcendence hero, and it's going to allow me to take the Purify that removes marks. Because what I found is Swordfish Sia was dying every time she healed up to the healing curses from Amun-Ra. So that allowed me to take that Purify mark and keep my shield alive, and also never get CC'd by all this insane CC that this lineup puts out. So that is a big tip. Big thank you to chat for calling that out to me. I'm sure other people have been made aware of it, but if you are struggling on this level like I was, go ahead and put in a Suicide Ignis next to your Transcendence hero. Give them the CC immunity. Don't be worried about moving around your enables, and I think you'll do just fine. Nightmare 5, I actually had to pull out 3 Transcendence heroes on my server 13 account. I did clear it with just 2 on my server 23 account. The big shtick is that your back row heroes are pretty weak. So that obviously means you want to put your front heroes and your heroes in the front to be really powerful. You can see with the lineup I had, I didn't put Swordfish Sia in the back, which was probably a mistake. It was a mistake, let's be clear. Some tips I would say though, if you have the ability with an Asmodel Dauntless, I think energy feeding an Asmodel and putting them in the front is going to clear this pretty easily. I would say putting carries in the back is going to also be very helpful, because those carries will keep reviving. And then I would say heroes that buff your team in the first round, such as Rogans, would also be very helpful. So carries in the back, Rogans in the back, and then your Transcendence heroes in the front to do a lot of damage. And again, Asmodel the Dauntless just cleans up all of these modes from the amount of damage he's putting out. This is a screen grab I took from both of my accounts. So the top one here is server 13 and the bottom one is server 23. And the things that stick out to me are that because I did not have a Gloria 5-star copy for my server 13 account, you can see that some of the toolbox stones and whatever the gray stone is called, I've got lower resource counts of those because I was not able to use 4-up on all 15 levels. I was only able to use 3. But then in server 13, you can see I've got more of the large stones. I got 910 versus 777, and that's because I have more powerful Transcendence heroes, and I was able to use like E5 Morax, which I didn't have at all on my server 23 account, and we were able to get some extra buffs and bonuses there. So I went ahead and claimed all that. You can see there's a little bit of RNG for some of the resources and what you get. There's ranges of the stones you get, but in general, obviously the more up heroes you can get, that's what they call them, up, or what do they call them, blessed heroes, that the more resources you're going to be getting. And so if you can find a way to squeeze them in, then you will be getting more resources. I wanted to end this video by giving a few general thoughts and tips about this new mode and where my feelings are on it. I'm going to first say that right now I like this mode. I like the fact that the thing I like the most is that it's once a week, which means, and there's a healthy amount of time to do it. So it's not like Void where it's twice a week. It's not like Aspen Dungeon, it's twice a week. It's once a week. You go in and you knock this out. And the fact that there is a rotating pool of heroes that you get these blessings from makes it pretty interesting. It means that you'll have to change up your strategies week to week in order to maximize your resources. So I could see myself getting frustrated because I don't think they'll ever give you a skip button, like a smash button, because of the fact that these heroes do change up, and so your lineups will always be changing. So it could potentially take a little bit more time than you maybe have that week to complete these. But I do like the ideas behind it. I like the fact that it's once a week. I like the fact that if you wanted, you could just smash all 15. I also think it's going to be really interesting to weigh this dynamic between whether or not you go depth 2 or you stay at depth 1 next week. I think obviously most people that clear depth 1 are going to at least attempt depth 2 and see how it's going. But it's possible it's significantly more difficult and you may not be able to get as many resources as you did on depth 1. Or it's possible you may be able to unlock up to the first 15 and not beat any of the nightmare levels because of how difficult they are. So that balance between getting some of the like toolbox stones and the cheaper stones versus the more expensive stones you might be able to get on depth 1, I think will be a kind of interesting decision as time goes on. You also start with 20 teardrops when the event opens, and they replenish every hour. And the reason that's important is that if you have the ability to get on around the reset time and use some of these, specifically once this gets more challenging, it's going to be like the Void Arc where you want to get on and you want to start using some of these resources up and make attempts in so that you can replenish them and you're not wasting them throughout the week. Someone did ask me a few questions about these heroic blessings on heroes. One thing to note is that they don't stack. So using like 5 carries does not give you plus 50% rewards. It's only 1 carry copy will get you the rewards. I was also curious, because nothing explicitly says it, whether or not these bonuses apply to your whole team or just to the hero. Based on common intuition, I would assume it's just going to be the hero there, but obviously it doesn't call it out. For the next session, we will have all light heroes, so it's kind of interesting that we had really no theme here, but then next session it's all light, and potentially the secret one is going to be like Russell or Ada. It'll be interesting to see if the heroic blessing ones, the one you really care about, is the Tussilago, which is in the first slot here, just like Gloria's in the first slot here, or if it's going to be the surprise one. So we'll have to keep our eye out for that. The final thing I wanted to talk about was that Groovy Styles on YouTube reached out to me through Discord, and I always appreciate their insights. And specifically, they were letting me know their thoughts on Magic Stone Sword, considering what we know now about Tower of Dream. And they were saying that potentially, you're gonna want that Magic Stone Sword for PvE modes like the Tower of Dream, and that potentially it could be powerful when there's an extreme amount of damage coming at you to limit that amount of damage to just 25%. So while he felt very comfortable that Magic Stone Sword within PvP is useless, he thought it's possible that it could have some uses within the Tower of Dream. Now, that being said, a Splendid Crown will also have uses within the Tower of Dream, and also potentially Splendid Demon Bells will have uses, especially if you're going for a Infinite Jara CC lock on a lot of these lineups. So I'm not necessarily saying keep your Magic Stone Swords. It made me think a little bit harder about whether or not I wanted to get rid of mine or not. I most likely still will in order to get more crowns, because the crowns also felt very good in this mode. But if we do go up against lineups, that aren't multi-hitting, that could be a pretty big deal with the Magic Stone Swords and limiting the amount of damage you're taking. I said 25%, I meant 20%, by the way. So just food for thought, something to consider, that he felt pretty comfortable. It was not PvP useful, but in PvE, it still may have some uses. And obviously, that's their opinion, but I trust their opinion way more than I trust my own. Like I said, there are people that understand this game better than I do, and I'm happy to admit that. I'm just good at communicating that to you, getting the information together, trying to communicate it in a small package, and helping you all out. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you were struggling on a nightmare level and this video did help you, please leave me a comment. That's the stuff that really just like pump it straight in my veins. It feels so good to hear the feedback like that. And I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you on my next video. Bye.